Hi, I'm Dr. Aimie, and this week I wanted to share a little bit about the freeze response. The freeze response is part of that survival defense mechanisms that we all have wired in us. And the freeze response is where our body goes if the fight or run away, fight or flight system is not going to be the best response system for our survival. And this is information picked up from our environment very quickly in a matter of milliseconds that our nervous system is assessing the environment and deciding how best to respond to a threat. And the freeze response is one of the most characteristic features of attachment disorder. And this is because as a baby, as a child, fighting or running away from an adult who's caring for you or is supposed to be caring for you is not the best option for your survival. You do depend on them for your survival. So even if they are also hurting you, whether emotionally, physically, sexually, leaving them or fighting them is going to put your survival in danger as well. And so kids who are in these relationships go to the freeze response. And as you know, I've been doing some somatic work and experimenting with this so that I can get a better sense of it, understand it better, and really be able to know what exactly is happening with the different survival responses. And so I have allowed my body to go into the freeze response, I think 5 times now. And this is not something that you should try at home by yourself on your own. This is something that each time I have done with a trained practitioner who has guided the process. And the first couple times it was helpful to have them guide the process. And then now I am very familiar with that survival response coming on. And so I feel like I've had at least enough experience where I can allow it to happen, and I know what's going to happen even though I'm losing control, because with the freeze response you do become paralyzed. Your body shuts down and you can't move. So I guess let me explain two of the circumstances, because I think that this will be really helpful in understanding partly why it is such a key feature of attachment disorder. And there are two experiences that I've had where my body went into the freeze response naturally. This is not something that I control. This is not something that I decide. It is something that I allow. In the moment when I feel it coming on, I can decide whether to pull myself out of it. Nope, don't want to go into the freeze response, or I can allow it to happen. But both circumstances that I would like to share with you tonight, both were in reference to holding myself back from the fight response. Very interesting. I was not expecting this. In one of the exercises, the first one where my body went into freeze response was where they had us get into a fighting stance and then intentionally kind of feel like we were holding ourselves back from actually throwing that punch. And I could feel this weight start to come over my body, and for me that's my freeze response. Is it feels like this wave passing down my body, and my arms, my shoulders, my legs get so heavy it feels like I cannot move them. It feels like it would take so much effort to move them at all, even move my finger. Everything just feels dead. Like it feels numb, feels dead. My mind goes off into this in-between space, I would call it. It's really interesting where I can hear what's going on. I could force myself to talk and engage if I wanted to, but again, even my muscles in my face feel so heavy that it's hard to force myself to talk when I go into the freeze response. Sometimes they will ask me questions and it's an effort, but it's an easier effort for me just to respond rather than actually talk. And eye contact is not happening for me when I'm in the freeze response. And what's really interesting is that this is where my body went to when I held myself back from the fighting impulse. And again, this goes back to why it's such a characteristic feature of attachment disorder, is because as children, as infants, if you fight your parents, they might forever leave you, and then you wouldn't have anything. And that would be worse than at least having something, even though it comes with pain, whatever that is, emotional pain, physical pain, sexual pain. And so this is one of the things that needs to be eventually processed from the nervous system, is this ability to express anger in a healthy way rather than constantly holding it back, because when they hold it back, they're going to go into the freeze response. So again, yes, I'm opening up about, the freeze response and my personal work with my therapist, but this is not something that you should do at home alone without a trained professional, and certainly not with your kids at home. This is something to understand better how their nervous system works when they have had experiences in their early life where fighting back would have needed to be resisted and inhibited, and their body would have gone into the freeze response. Their mind would have gone into a happy place where there is no fear. They don't care what's going on around them. You can hurt me as much as you can, but you're not really hurting me because I'm not really here in my body or in my mind. So we'll have lots more to talk about, but if you want to look into somatic type of work, I think that it could be very helpful, especially as adults trying to earn a secure attachment. And for kids, I think that in the right timing in their healing process would be a great time to introduce the somatic work. It is too much early on. They need to have some degree of trust with you as their parent before going into this work. All right, have a good evening.